That's fine.
Got it.
It's fine. John Faker can feel the anticipation in his downstairs. That may be a go-to. Welcome to the basketball beat. It's been pulled out of mothballs. Speaking of being pulled out of mothballs,
Mm, there he
just
is.
those of you who are
you just pull it out of the storage container in your garage, just shake it a couple times.
Those of you who've only been listening to Bullet Sports podcasts for 3 or 4 years may not recognize the gentleman in the upper right. You can find him sometimes on Twitter, although his tweets, it's like the Mission Impossible thing. They just delete themselves after a certain amount of time.
30 days. 30 days.
Is
everyone should delete their tweets, their Facebook posts.
Nobody should
their
tweet.
Instagram
Nobody
after,
should tweet.
Well,
Twitter
just don't
is poison.
tweet.
It's poison.
That's more of the approach that I've been taking lately. Is
Michael's gonna run for something, isn't he?
pop in every once in a while.
Isn't it amazing when people have stuff out there like that gets dug up? It's like, what were you like? Just delete everything.
Every athlete, every young white quarterback has something bad in their background, except for Joe Burrow, who is just like, hey, this LeBron James guy is real good. That's all he does. All he is vibes. That's why he wins. He doesn't have anything. That's it.
That man lives on vibes. He is a
best.
vibe. He's the best.
There is nothing better than Joe Burrow.
I might start watching the NFL again just so I can watch him.
Oh, it's so
pretty
good.
ridiculous. It's pretty ridiculous what he did. He was what? One late score, holding them off of one late score from winning a national championship at LSU and a Super Bowl for the Bengals in a 2-year span.
Bengals. LSU, they win like once every 8 years or whatever, or once every 5 years. They're there anyway. The Bengals.
Yeah.
The Bengals.
Yeah. The
That's
Bengals.
the best. But what other current events can we do?
I don't think there's really much going on these days.
Well, we waited to do a podcast about Purdue basketball until they had a week off so that it would, have a longer shelf life. You can't do it when they're playing every other day.
Entirely honestly, like we knew that the minute that we would put it out, it would be like, okay, on to the next, which is why we kind of let Dowd do his quick cast. In theory, that was why. We definitely talked about this in the many planning sessions and meetings that we have for
let's be real honest here and say that we just act in ways that we want to act and then retroactively ascribe a strategy to those actions.
Nobody else ever functions like this in the history of anything.
Yeah.
By the way, if you're not subscribed on YouTube, what are you doing? What are you doing?
Smash that like button.
And hit the little bell.
Hit the bell for the notifications.
And then Boiler Dowd's voice will come into your feed every now and then. And
his voice and those amazing glasses that he put. I love it. I genuinely love it. Watch it just for that.
There's no glass in those. There's no panes. They're just frames.
It's
I don't
great.
know if you knew that. He may or may not join us. He was talking about it. John Faker now wants to know if Michael's in the Mars space pod from The Martian.
John, I don't appreciate you putting me on blast like this in front of a worldwide audience.
Michael's old because Michael used to be from the Pacific Northwest capital of here's John Faker going 3 for 3 growing potatoes with Matt Damon.
I mean, at this point, all of John's messages should have little flames on them, like we're in NBA Jam. When you hit 3 shots in a he's on fire.
It used to be the Pacific Northwest capital of the Bullet Sports, universe. Now it's the Southern capital of the Bullet Sports universe. So
beautiful Texas.
So Michael is no longer the communist tree hugger. He is now rootin' tootin' Michael.
If you don't think that I'm wearing my boots right now, then you are.
Boots are underrated.
Out in his armory.
Underrated.
Yeah, out in my armory. You know what? I've brought a lot of the Pacific Northwest with me, and it has not been appreciated down here in Texas.
Like the civil unrest parts, you mean? Is that what you brought down there? Because I feel like that goes wherever you are, it seems. I don't know. You ever seen civil unrest and Michael in the same place? I don't know. They seem like Motor City Boiler has an interesting comment. He says, Boiler has been very angry lately. Lately?
I feel like MCB has been around long enough.
How long has Bullet Sports been around? 16 years. It's the same guy. You're getting the same guy. It's
one of
the
my
guy we
favorite
all
things.
love.
I really was hoping he'd be on tonight because I wanted to talk about one of my favorite recent quick casts was when he got on with reams of data and said, "I'm not an analytics guy. I don't like it. And then proceeded to make the most coherent analytical argument I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Like, it was actually very rock solid. He said you have to look at recent Final Four teams and compare, how does Purdue
let's
stack
be
up
honest
to those
though.
teams? I thought that was a very thoughtful way to do it.
Dowd did none of that. LBD did all of that.
He did all the work. He just read off of the
was
script.
LBD.
Yeah. Because at this point, his fact checker has gotten old enough to be able to check facts. And so that's why the content is through the roof, people.
Through the roof.
He'll just hand it off eventually. I think that's the plan.
Or we will forcibly.
Exactly. It's a coup. It's a coup either way. I mean,
basically, LBD, whenever you want to make a move, you just let us know.
Yeah, you just on the sly, exactly.
Just let us know.
So it's been a little bit. We haven't dedicated an entire podcast to talk about basketball, though. Since last year, though, we may sneak some football talk into this because we are already planning things for the football season, which is great. It's absolutely irrational behavior. It's the best. It's just ridiculous. Insane behavior. That being said, overall, in general, how are you feeling, especially kind of coming out of this seemingly endless stretch of 9 p.m. games every other day?
No.
I love the 9 p.m. games.
Yeah, because you're in Central Time Zone, which is honestly quite good.
You loved it in the Pacific Northwest too.
Oh, I loved it then. That was great. I mean, game starting at 6 o'clock.
Having something on after 4. Yeah, it was probably great.
It was awesome. I agree with John here again that we should use some of Jay Money's vast wealth for good, such as hiring assistants for all of us. I'm in support of that. It's definitely better. It's definitely better than what he currently spends his wealth on.
He has assistants. He has assistants, but they're all there. They're all
calls them
with
butlers.
Him. Yeah.
When I'm bored, he says, "Have 2 of your butlers fight."
He does. He has Jay. People don't know this, but Jay actually has 6 butlers, and at the end of every quarter of the year, he has them fight until he only has 3 left, and then he hires 3 more, and then he has them do work, and then at the end of the quarter, he has them fight again, and this is basically just how Jay spends his money.
Like the Joker.
Better than performance reviews.
Exactly. That's it. This is your performance review. Purdue basketball.
Motor City Boiler says to make sure you introduce the new guy when you guys start recording. Everyone's coming right off the top rope.
If you haven't tuned in since 2018, if you hadn't tuned in since AJ Hammonds was starting for Purdue.
Hey, no, I wrote a couple things on Carson.
It's absurd the amount of ink that the digital ink that we have used over mediocre basketball teams, and by the time we get to this amazing team, we're just so burnt out. We're so burnt out.
We're just gonna watch it with all of you.
We spent all of it on Daryl Hazel and Donnie Hale.
Oh my gosh, we were writing stuff every damn day about those teams.
Meanwhile, is this the most fun?
Yes.
At least in the regular season, we'll put an addendum on March and all of this. But is this the most fun you have watching a regular season Purdue basketball team?
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, it's great, but you don't think the Baby Boiler season was better because it was not even expected?
So
I think. Well, that was unique.
So fun.
We sort of expected this a little bit, or at least parts of this a little bit. You don't get that surprise factor. But when Purdue is clicking and just dog walking people, that is a lot of fun to watch because it's not, common for Purdue.
So that's the other thing is you go in the favorite and you just dominate. Do you prefer that, or do you prefer things like the Carson run, which we all kind of thought was possible in the back of our head, but none of us are expecting that to be the Elite 8 team, especially kind of following all of the other teams that won the Big Ten and had was deep and had Biggie and the 4 seniors. Do you prefer the surprise run, or is this just in and out?
You asked about regular season.
Yeah, regular season.
The Elite 8 year with Carson was not as fun to watch.
Yeah.
There was a lot of up and down.
We wrote the team off in December, and we were like, "Oh, January, February, yeah, cool. They could be fun. Maybe a nice Sweet 16 run unexpectedly, and that's it."
What were they in that tournament? Like a 4, maybe?
They ended up being a 4, correct? Yes.
Yeah.
I'll say what was fun about that run was I'm getting all these texts from friends who follow Pac-12 teams and WCC teams and SEC teams, being like, "Holy crap! I didn't know you guys had such a good team." That was kind of fun, but
yeah,
that's part of the package.
Yeah, and the other thing that this made me think of that I find interesting, just because it's a weird anomaly, but Purdue's last 2 Elite 8 teams were both not expected to go that far, right? That team, and then I know the other one predates you guys, but the 2000
Cardinal team,
they were a 6 seed. They weren't even that. They had a middling season, and then they go to the Elite 8
and lose to Wisconsin for the
lose to an 8 seed Wisconsin.
They had beaten twice in the regular.
I think they'd beaten them once and lost twice. But either way, they played 4 times.
Are any of you looking forward to the next time Purdue plays Illinois? Because I'm not. Purdue beat Illinois twice, and Purdue seemed like the tougher team. That being said, good Lord, it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a year.
It's good. Yeah, but Illinois, what was that? Overtime, and then the other one was pretty handily.
It was solid, but they, it was close, but it wasn't, it wasn't like
Underwood doesn't impress me. I just.
But the fact that he's got a bunch of 25-year-olds.
I mean, honestly, I think the average age on that team is over 22, which is wild.
Age. Yeah,
they can all rent cars. It's
convenient.
It's convenient.
So yeah, but who cares? What are you worried about Illinois for? In the Big Ten tournament?
No, I don't.
They're not gonna meet them till the final or semifinal, right? So
I don't care about the Big Ten tournament. They could disband it tomorrow, and I would not care.
I mean,
I honestly don't.
The benefit of this, like they what did Golden Black say something like 3-4 weeks without a day off, because they usually do kind of a prep day, a travel day, and game day.
Yeah.
So it was either it was a shortened schedule for them or no day off. The benefit of that, which Boiler Dad was completely right in saying that, the Big Ten kind of screwed Purdue to make Michigan's schedule work a little bit better. That being said, the end of the season becomes like rest up time. All of a sudden you've played, you're rested, you've won, you've banked a whole bunch of wins. And as other teams in the top 10 are kind of taking some bad losses, Purdue's just sitting there and resting up, and Jaden Ivey can, do Jaden Ivey things like explode on the baseline all of a sudden like no other Purdue player I've ever seen. For a slam, I've never wanted anything more than a March run for Jaden Ivey leading to him being drafted by the Pacers. There's nothing that I want more, which is why I know the basketball gods deem it to be a very low probability event.
And he'll get drafted by the Knicks.
Don't.
That's way too competent of a move.
Don't do it.
I don't care who drafts him. I'm gonna root for even if it's the Knicks.
I mean, even if it's the Knicks.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Why should I be excited about the Knicks? What do the Knicks have to be excited
about? What harm do the Knicks do? What do you have? What could you possibly have against them? Ugly basketball?
The late 90s? I don't know how to
enjoy knees. I enjoyed knees.
Mid 90s that you're thinking of, by the way. They were particularly awful in the late 90s was Spreewell Knicks. That was a far more watchable
That was the
team.
4-point play. That was the 4-point play Knicks, and even though those were the more fun Knicks, I cannot do this on purpose.
I love Larry Johnson as a player.
You guys almost had Ja. You guys were one. You were one pick away from the 1.0.
You know what allows me to not really be that upset by things like that is that if they'd gotten John Morant, he'd have flamed out of the league by now.
Oh yeah,
they would have. They'll ruin whoever they get. So it's better for Ja that he didn't go to the Knicks.
Tibbs would have ground his ligaments just into powder.
Well, that's what I mean. I don't sit there going, "Oh, John Morant doing that for the Knicks." No, because if he was on the Knicks, he wouldn't be doing that. It's really that easy. It doesn't matter who they sign. It doesn't.
I just want one healthy run. We can just do one healthy one, right? Once in our lives.
They were healthy. Purdue. They were healthy 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
Until Isaac Haas broke his elbow.
No, the Carson team was perfectly healthy.
He's talking about the Elite 8 team.
Yeah, but the Carson team, again, I guess the Carson team was perfectly healthy, and that's when they kind of went on the run. But again, that wasn't a team that we were looking at that could do kind of big things, right?
So isn't the pressure higher on this Purdue team?
Sure, but I will take the pressure. Just do not give me a broken elbow in the third week of March. You know what I mean? Like, that's it.
Oh,
I know it's going to happen. It's all of you people who are saying, "Oh, you're going to jinx it right now." What are you talking about? Have you not lived a life of Purdue suffering already? Yeah. What more harm could we do that isn't already coming our way? So it's like it is. Yeah, that's it. There's going to be pressure. Purdue's going to be a 1 or a 2 seed, probably a 2, probably one of the higher twos.
That's kind of slipping, and it's kind of bugging me a little bit because Purdue has been extremely, I think, consistently. They were a media darling when the season started. Everybody really liked them, was talking about them and Painter, and seemed eager to see them at number 1. And they've really done nothing, I don't think, to take the shine off of that. They've got what are they, 24-4? Like,
it was the Michigan loss is the thing that is going to prevent them from advancing in the eyes of
one bad loss. Well,
it is one bad loss, but also the top 3 are kind of like, barring another pretty bad loss. Like, it does seem like Gonzaga, Arizona, like, are pretty unimpeded to it. Kansas, I think, has a pretty clear path to a 1, and then Auburn. Like, Auburn, even though they just kind of took a loss, it's not like their schedule gets difficult, right? So I think it's most likely if Purdue, the last 3 games right now are Michigan State, IU, and Wisconsin. Yeah. So in all likelihood, Purdue probably takes one more loss. It will be okay when Purdue takes that loss. It's fine. It'll be okay. But so if they take that loss plus a Big Ten tournament loss, that kind of puts them into a mid to high 2 seed, and I'd be perfectly fine.
I think that's fine. That's a great.
Gotta be a 2.
That's a great.
I think anything less than that, though, is a disappointment after the year they've had.
Oh, I would be stunned if they ended up at, unless they took multiple 2 or 3 losses between now and the end, which would be like a really bad. They
would earn themselves a bad. Yeah,
and that's at the point where it's concerning. You got to end the season. It's tough. It is not an easy end to the season. Michigan State, at Wisconsin, and home, which Wisconsin, good Lord, Johnny Davis, and home versus Indiana. Then 1 or 2 games in the Big Ten tournament and a loss. Like, all of it, if you lose 3 of those, all of a sudden that becomes like a cause for concern. That becomes just like the speaking of the Baby Boilers, the 2011 team with the team without Rob, but with Etuan and Juwan, that lost senior day, pretty listlessly to Iowa, and then kind of lost the first game of the Big Ten tournament. And you were like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I don't know, first or second game of the Big Ten tournament, like completely listless. And it was like, wait a minute, what's happening?
Something's off.
And then that was the team that, went lifeless against VCU, right?
That dang ball rack.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Throwing it at people's heads.
Concussions. Yeah, it really just messes with the team chemistry.
It was a crazier time.
Yeah. There's a book where you can learn all about that.
One thing I was looking at before this, though, that makes me feel good about the end of the season is that Wisconsin has tomorrow night, they've got a lovely 9 p.m. start at Minnesota. Then 3 days later, they're at Rutgers, and nobody comes into the rack. We all know that. And then they finish versus Purdue and versus Nebraska. So they have 4 games left, 2 on the road in places that aren't totally friendly to play in. I don't know if Minnesota will be more than a speed bump, but I know at Rutgers will be at least a tough game because Rutgers has proven to be a good team at home this year. So I feel good about that. I feel like they're going to take a loss. I don't think they're going to win 4.
Yeah, but then all of a sudden, you get something like 7 Big Ten teams in the tournament, but none of them are over, 2, right?
Right.
So none of them, like maybe you get 1 2 seed and 2 or 3 seeds. I mean,
which is sort of how the Big Ten has been.
They beat up on each other, and then they go into March tired, and then all of a sudden they take a loss in the tournament. Yay, conference!
The thing that makes me feel positive about this team, though, is out of the losses, the Michigan loss was really bad, but came at the end of a really tough run. But I can't say the same about the other losses as far as them being bad. Like they played teams that hit great shots and played above their level, and Purdue lost, and that's just going to happen in college basketball. So
in the moment, Wisconsin felt bad, and that was kind of before we realized that Johnny Davis was like
home loss. Though home losses are bad.
The only one of the year.
but a home loss to an all of a sudden National Player of the Year, contender,
Yeah, a really good team that's 21-5.
Yeah,
like okay. Now let's say they go to Madison and win. Then I don't even that loss then doesn't sting me that badly because you've taken it back. If you go do that, you have your chance to do it. So I agree, though. The Michigan loss was a bit of an open-handed slap.
Meanwhile, what did the respected...
Nothing for that. Nothing at all for that.
I was going to say, meanwhile, the respected Tom Izzo, the respectful, the accountable Tom Izzo, I think lost tonight. Lost by double digits.
Kyle Charters, a friend of ours on Twitter, he tweeted that Tom Izzo said this morning that he would go down the handshake line and shake everyone's hand, even if they kicked his butt. And he said, and I didn't realize he meant tonight.
It's 86-60 to Iowa.
They've lost like 5 of 6. Did you know that?
Yeah. Rutgers, Wisconsin, Penn State, Illinois, and Iowa. The one win, IU. Oh, good old IU.
No, I hate to see it.
Michigan State has a pretty tough into their season, and Iowa can really fill it up, which is not something that feels right when I say it, but it's nevertheless true.
They retired Luka Garza's number tonight.
You're retiring Luka? Wasn't he just last year? Didn't he play until last year?
Yeah. They're retiring his number.
Huh.
When should they do it, Anish? 10 years
emotional.
After he leaves?
Yeah, exactly.
No. If you're going to do it, but I don't get, like, think of all those deep runs he took them on. What?
I mean, but didn't he win at least one National Player of the Year?
So all those Big Ten titles too. No,
I mean, hey, listen, it's Iowa. It's Fran. It's the excellence of Fran.
Okay, he won a Player of the Year. Great. You retire his number?
Yeah. Oh, if you win a Player of the Year, it's an automatic raise.
You have to view these players in the context of the programs that they come from.
Yeah.
And Luka Garza is a top 3 Iowa basketball player of all time.
I cannot name another great Iowa basketball player.
I said top 3 because I'm sure there's some guys out there that I'm forgetting.
I'm sure. Shout out to all of you Iowa people. I cannot name another one of your basketball players.
Nor do I want to. Like, I have a browser open. I can easily Google this.
All-time great Iowa basketball players. It'll be like... Yeah, it'll be like...
It'll be the first Google search that returns no results.
Keegan Murray is going to be a top 10 pick this year. And again, he is so fine. Like, he's exactly fine. He'll be a solid, fine NBA player. He's Iowa. It's just they're fine. They're fine. All right. Yeah, they're Iowa. Harmless in the end, but fine.
I think, he's a little better than fine.
Keegan Murray, he's in college, in the NBA, he could turn out with some, real coaching and development. He could turn into a really good player.
Shots fired at Fran.
Oh, yeah. You know me. Never shooting at Iowa, ever.
Good stuff. Good stuff. What was I going to say here? Oh, Michigan State's down to 9-7 in conference, but they'll still get what? They'll get a 3.
Oh, yeah, because it's January, February Izzo, correct? That's what we're supposed to say? As he flames out yet again to another double-digit seed, and we just all don't talk about it.
The end of his career is going to be awful. Like, it's going to be...
Only your lips to God's ears. I really
I think awful to experience from my perspective, because he's still going to be talked about as if he can turn Michigan State into a good team, and every year it's going to be 18 wins.
Yeah,
and a preseason number 7 ranking. That kind of crap, right? It's always
he's going to turn Michigan State basketball into Notre Dame football.
That's pretty good.
I think Notre Dame football has been much better than that of late.
Listen, don't take away the joy that I have in watching them get curb stomped in a bowl in a January bowl.
I hope you've been enjoying it because Marcus Freeman is there now.
I hope they have 2 outstanding years, and Marcus Freeman gets hired by the NFL, and all of a sudden, I can go back to just hating Notre Dame like normal.
Or Freeman gets hired to replace fired Kelly at LSU.
I've been spending the time since he's been hired trying to figure out a way that he can be successful while Notre Dame sucks. And I haven't gotten there yet, but
it's got to be quick. It's got to be a quick burn. They've got to go undefeated, win a national title this year, and all of a sudden, that's it.
No. I can't have them
winning. Quick.
You can have them winning a national title. I cannot have them.
If he makes the playoff, that is a great Marcus Freeman story. He doesn't need to win the title.
Rip off the Band-Aid.
No,
close loss.
I refuse to accept that as a reality.
Yeah, no. I mean, you can't. Notre Dame can't beat.
There is no program in football or basketball or any other sports that I disdain more than Notre Dame, for many reasons.
Michigan State athletics is getting there for me.
They're pretty bad. They're pretty bad.
Anish, you're not allowed to say that unless you donate to one of their charities. I don't know.
Yeah. You know what's great? I really enjoy people telling me to donate after saying it's really funny for Tom Izzo to be the one talking about responsibility and accountability, for people telling me to go donate to Michigan State's accountability fund because they're going to hold themselves accountable and they need your money to do it.
The only way to send a message to Michigan State is to give Michigan State more money.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's it.
What is so hard to understand about?
I know. It's capitalism. This is it, right?
It works. It works. And if it doesn't work yet, just give it more time.
Just give it more money.
More money.
Yeah, you just give it more time, more money. It's fine.
Yeah. You're the unreasonable one.
Oh, couldn't happen to a worse program.
By the way, speaking of programs that aren't Purdue, and speaking of programs in my home state, you guys know I love to give Rutgers love. Do you know they're a half game out of getting the fourth double bye?
If they beat Purdue, like at Purdue, the warning light is on that Rutgers would have won the conference. Like we are at DEFCON 2.
A check engine light. You're like, something's not right
Rutgers
here.
Rutgers winning the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Like, no, but they'd get a double bye. They'd be in the top 4. How that alone is ludicrous. Leave aside winning the conference.
I'm telling Purdue, I don't care. Again, we've established if I would ideally like one win in the Big Ten tournament, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Just take the rest. Jaden, get into, a cold tub and a hot tub. It's fine. Like, just rest, be cool. But if I were one of those teams that were kind of on the bubble that needed a good couple of wins, I would not want to see Rutgers on the Big Ten tournament at all.
No.
So it's like, I mean, you were talking about kind of Purdue's losses again. Going back to the Rutgers game, like all of a sudden, Rutgers, it's not a buzzer-beating loss to a terrible team. It's actually a buzzer-beating loss on the road to a perfectly fine, maybe probably on the right side of the bubble team.
Now they climbed through the quads after that win because they had as bad of a start to the season as you could possibly have.
But then they won, was it 4 or 5 in a row against ranked teams?
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Then
they're still on that quad 1, quad 2 border, if I'm remembering correctly, but they're probably going to wind up on the right side of that.
Then you get to Indiana, sucks. I can't. I mean, there's nothing I can say.
I can't
rationalize it. It's their Super Bowl, so they should raise a banner for it. I totally agree. You've broken a 13-game losing streak against Purdue. It's awesome. Go for it.
Barely.
Raise a banner.
Purdue had the chance to win that game. That wasn't like that was a decisive win. Purdue had the ball, and
is Tennessee still out, or is he back?
He might be back now. Yeah, but they still basically, since all of them kind of gotten 5 of them got suspended. 5 of them gotten suspended. We're not gonna see a good run out of them yet. Really quickly, it does look like we have a caller on the line. Let's go to line. But can we go to line 1, please? Line 1. Let's go.
Look at that. Oh, and he's
he can't. His microphone's not working. Oh no.
Oh no!
Nope, it's not.
Oh no! The show was going great. It was going amazing.
It's fine. Just shout into the mic at the point where
open your window.
You're good.
And just yell.
Open a window down.
Oh man!
But then, it's you get to these bad losses. All of a sudden, Michigan, you can't do it. But we're chalking that up to a schedule loss anyway.
Indiana has lost 5 in a row. Gosh,
hate to say. I think we should also acknowledge that Mike Woodson has the best annoyed face in all of college.
Oh, I would not want that guy looking at me irritated.
I mean, he just looks so disappointed.
He looks at you just like, what are you doing?
It's the equivalent of that meme where the guys in the cricket fan is just standing there, just like staring down the hurt, like the dude that his hands on his hips.
My favorite guy, like my favorite exasperated thing is it's not hands on the hips, it's the outsides of the wrists on the hips, and it's just like I can't even be bothered
Yeah.
to like grab this.
There's some good comments. We've lost. We almost had Boiler down.
He'll be here.
Boiler says,
We'll hear his dulcet sounds. It's stone cold. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It's fine.
It'll be all right.
So the other part of this, these are really great points, Bullard, that you're making. The silent partner that we've often described you at Boiled Sports as the silent partner.
Yeah,
strong silent.
Just sign what we're saying for anyone who's.
It's more of an accessibility thing.
And then you have to do like a jump shot. We're talking about basketball here. Yes. Yeah. Oh.
It is. We again. Let's take a chance to plug. Let's take a chance to plug the YouTube channel. If you haven't been listening to Boiler Dowd's quick casts after all of this, he does have sound on nearly all of them.
Yeah, most of them are not silent movies.
Yeah, exactly, and they're all tremendous.
They're talkies.
One of the losses. So we were kind of going through the losses. One of the losses was the IU game, which is Trevion Williams' kind of worst stretch of the season. It seems like we've got him back, like the real him back, which is nice. And the Michigan loss, I think we're chalking up to a schedule loss. Is that right? Like, are we okay doing that? Boiler Dad's giving a thumbs up.
I mean,
well, I bet Dowd just has a great point to just punctuate that statement. No, I think you're right, and also it happened, and there's nothing we can do about it now anyway. But the team is playing differently. Like the biggest thing with Williams is just he went through a stretch where if he would get the ball, he'd really like work it, no matter where he was on the court, and he would try to like the hero ball for bigs was, and I think that part of that was him trying to get back into a rhythm. And lately, he's been more letting the game sort of come to him in that sense.
He'd always do that thing where he fades away from the basket with the little flare.
Microphone.
Oh, look at him! Look at him. Okay, can we do the bit again? Can we?
Screw you, John Faker.
Dad is my dad.
I used to like him too. Faker used to
he's been letting it go. He's been letting it fly.
He has just got a flamethrower tonight.
It's just good that he's making fun of someone other than me.
Yeah. Motor City Boiler says, "Did Boiler Dad unplug the mic and unplug it back in?"
Yeah, no, I held down the power button for 5. No, I didn't. No,
I think Dowd just yelled
freaking software as intermediaries to get me to this. Yeah, I hate it.
That's not what I think happened.
Honestly,
what I think happened is I think Dowd just yelled, and then the computer was like, "I gotta get this guy off my back.
Enough.
I'm gonna make this work."
All right, it's not funny anymore.
I put J Money and I on one side of the screen because we're matching, because we matchy.
Oh, I could have done that too, but I didn't.
I got my sweatshirt back here.
I've worn
it's a little warm here in Texas.
I live in Texas.
I've worn this for the last several, like for all of the Purdue wins recently. So now I'm stuck. Like I can't.
Oh, that's the trick. That's why they've been winning.
It has to be. There's nothing else.
I think that's probably why they got it back. I don't think any doubt about that.
We've said Trey, like his weak stretch, not just when he's trying to overpass or trying to, the hero ball for Trey isn't just the dribbling the air out of the ball, but it's also that he wants to do the highlight pass. But the worst part is the fadeaway kind of floater. He needs to just go towards the basket. You're huge.
Well, it's the funny thing. Like what you're saying is so, big fundamental idea, right? Just do the things that you can easily do, and big things will change, right? Like he read his press and he heard that he's the best passing big man in America. So then he's like, all right, I'm gonna really impress, right?
Yeah. Those passes sometimes.
He went through a stretch where he was doing the one-handed sling the ball
across the court,
and it would go just to nobody. Yeah, whatever.
Or directly to somebody. And that's the other thing, is that if you look at some of these numbers, Purdue's defense is really bad in transition.
You could have just stopped that tournament.
But the half court defense of late has gotten better. But what makes these numbers look a lot worse are every turnover is a fast break for the other team, right? Yeah. And it's like, it's not that and it's almost like, we get two bigs, like it's Mason Gillis, whatever center is on the court, crashing the glass. It's always Jaden Ivey heading, being at the rim, and all of a sudden you got three guys underneath it, three guys underneath the glass and nobody back. All of a sudden you're giving up free points. And when Purdue went through that really like grueling 3-week stretch, all of a sudden you saw the turnover numbers go up, and when the turnover numbers go up, the fast break points given up go
I
up.
think
And that's kind of where you see it.
There's discrete things about Purdue's defense that are bad. It's not as a whole they're just suffer at everything. There are certain things that they're not good at. The switching on shooters is a problem, and transition is a problem. And when a team is able to exploit those two, then you better hope that Purdue outscores them. Something that they've largely been able to do.
Yeah, they that's the being able to outscore teams, right? That's something I think, especially in December, we all thought was kind of a priority, and it was like absolutely they were going to be able to keep going doing that, right? Then all of a sudden, the offense was figured out by a couple people, right? Throw the extended trap at them, and all of a sudden Purdue was mortal, right?
Yeah.
And it exposed everything. The big thing that I take away, you can't outscore teams all the time, obviously. And I am, so you guys know this. I mean, these guys on this show know more than the people in the margin here, how much I am worried, or I don't even know what you want to call it. It doesn't do me any good, but the defensive problems are just, they're so glaring to me, especially by teams that are well coached, and we see even like Rutgers, even though Purdue won convincingly, they knew what they were doing. They had a game plan to do it, and they never got close to doing it because Purdue was so in sync and just kind of found that rhythm again. I just have a hard time believing they'll find that rhythm consistently through the tournament. That's my
4 games in a row, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
a lot.
What you need to see. It's so strange because if you look through the KenPom ratings, it's weird that the offense through the years has been the thing floating Purdue, like in recent years, like in this kind of Painter era, right?
Yeah.
Like we had the Baby Brothers Painter era, and then this one, it's been the efficient offense, which is crazy because when we think of Painter, he's a defensive coach. Like he's a coach, a defensive coach, and he coaches big men, right?
Right, and in my that's a really good point. And my deep dive into the other teams in the KenPom high rankings, like that's one thing that's been kind of like a surprise to me is I always thought Purdue, and maybe it's because I just like would pay attention when it felt like the right time to the KenPom rankings, but I always felt like Purdue's defensive efficiency was top 5 to 10 like pretty much all the time, and it's really not the case. It really hadn't been the case of late.
This team, it's so strange because it's so strange to see. Usually Purdue, like mediocre defensive teams, you just see them run out of gas on the defensive end. To me, this team I don't think effort is the problem on defense.
Really?
I genuinely think it is instincts. Like they are trying, they are just not quite either in sync, or they're all not doing the same, but they're all earnestly doing what they think they should be at the moment. Right?
So let me that part right there. You say earnestly doing what they think they should be doing at that moment. You believe, because I disagree with this, that one guy specifically, like I watch Ivy specifically, and I'll pick guys like just to watch, like ISO on him, and I'm like, it feels like he takes defensive possessions off, where he's sagging more. Right. And he's getting lazy and just trying to cut off the passing lane, not staying in it. That's been his thing all season.
I think that's fair. But I do think he's got a lot of, he carries the offense. Right. And so it is a large part, that is a large part of kind of why that could happen. But no, you're right. I totally think that of the people that, Of the people you could pick on there, by the way, we're not picking on Jaden Ivey. He's
No.
amazing. But
No.
but I think on defense, you are right that he does tend to kind of take
if you listen to Matt Painter, though, recently in press conferences and in his show and stuff, what he talks about on defense is communication. Like
over and over and over. Yeah.
Aren't operating as a unit. And I think that goes back to that goes back to a lot of things. Like earlier on in the season, what he talked about when Purdue, lost to Rutgers and sort of struggled a little bit. One of the things that he said that has stuck with me has been, maybe this team got used to outscoring everybody.
Right.
And didn't really feel like that emphasis needed to be there on defense. And so I think this is a much different defensive team now in the middle of February than it was in November, December, January, because I think they are evolving. And then one other point on Matt Painter, Dowdy, you were talking about the team, like the offensive and defensive efficiency changes for this program over the years. And I think one thing that Painter has shown himself to be very good at, which I wouldn't have predicted when he took the job, is that he's adapted his style of coaching to the players that he has and the system that he wants to run, and recognizes what he needs. And so what he has recognized as a winning formula is a dominant big, shooters, and a ball dominant guard. And he has recruited for that, and he has coached to that. And that is not what Purdue was back in 2005, 2010, 2012, etc.
I really like this. Just real quick, I really like this, Boilerman. It's reactionary defense, and I really do think that is a lot. That's a lot of what I'm seeing is that they're always kind of reacting to it. It's almost the football thing. You see Baker Mayfield play, right? You see him going through, knowing what his progressions are supposed to be, and going through that. But the feel generally isn't there. The ability to recognize the defense isn't quite there. Like he'll react a little bit. There's no real anticipation. It's always reaction. And when you're reacting and you aren't these preternatural defenders, all of a sudden you're a step slow, or all of a sudden Trevion Williams is always kind of in the wrong place, whether he's shading the ball handler or whether he's kind of,
isn't that though the idea that this defense, that a Painter coach defense, and I guess maybe we're busting up a lot of, misconceptions tonight, but the idea that a Painter coach defense and a bunch of Painter coach guys would be that bad on instinct and how to play certain plays, and wouldn't that come down to early recognition of what's happening, maybe too? I mean, like those things seem to me to be what Painter is very good at, developing these guys and getting them in the right place. But yeah, I don't know.
It's the one frustrating part, but I do think, kind of to Michael's earlier point, Painter's going to be here forever. Painter's going to be here until he has the most wins in the Big Ten ever, and he's going to have the most wins in Purdue basketball history. That is what it is. So I think as we are taking kind of a wider lens, we have the Baby Boilers era, we have the dip, we have the kind of the resurgence era where he's kind of discovered this big ball and shooters thing. And then I think we will now be like recognize this later as the post Carson era. I think Carson will be, because to your point, and to our point when we were talking about that 2019 regular season, when we were talking about this as, for all of the flaws and for all of its like nitpicks, we're really just nervous because we want a March run, because this is the most fun regular season team that I think Purdue has had.
Yeah.
This was a quick conversation that we had beforehand, but the 2019 team wasn't. But that was also because Painter was trying to adjust his entire offense or his coaching philosophy around what Carson Edwards was and around what that team was.
In the season. In the middle of the season.
And he was like, okay, I didn't give Etuan Moore a leash to, make mistakes. I didn't give Vince Edwards a leash to make mistakes. Like he barely gave Caleb Swanigan, that kind of a leash to make mistakes. All of a sudden you're seeing him say, okay, Carson, you have the offense. If you make mistakes, it's going to be on you, but that's okay. Like you're going to be on the floor. And that's how he's playing Jaden right now, because Jaden is not coming off the floor. Like that is the one thing in this run. You can look at the minutes run, and it was only when Purdue was kind of blowing teams out by double digits. Jaden does not come out. And so Painter, it's the strange thing where this team is so deep, but Painter knows this team can only kind of go as far as Jaden can take them. And that means maybe having him make a few mistakes in the regular season. And that is like a post Carson kind of Painter, which I think Bullard also kind of noted in previous quick guess, right? So it is weird. It is strange. We are kind of caught in this, but it's fun.
So you guys, you had a point. I think Michael said it about kind of, it was Michael or Nish. I don't know which one of you guys. You guys all look the same to me. But the parts that are needed in Painter's new look offense, right? And you said a dynamic guard, or would you say a ball?
Shooters, bigs, and a ball dominant guard.
Ball dominant guard. Okay, so when you look ahead, just a half step, and I don't want to wish anything away, but when I look ahead, I don't see a ball dominant guard in the pipe right now. And
there's some recruits that have shown a little bit of that, but they're high school kids, so who knows?
Right. But I like, and that's the other thing. That's the point that I've been marveling at, is how much, if you just go 2 years ago, what Jaden Ivey was versus what he is now, that to me it's like, there's no way Painter could have known it would happen this way, right? This development, for multiple reasons, for the fact that he's had amazing summer coaching, whatever. Ivey is a completely different human being than he was as a junior in high school. Sure, I mean, even as a senior, right? He was like 12 points a game junior year.
We have two of these players, because you're talking about this like Jaden was a great player in high school, but he wasn't a guaranteed top 5 pick.
No.
What was Zach Edey? Did he play another sport? Do we know? Jay Money, do you know?
I've never heard.
He played another sport.
Soccer. He played soccer.
Yeah,
he was a good soccer player, but was too tall.
Yeah, nobody played.
I don't know if they've mentioned that. But no, you're right. And the other thing is that Painter has recruited these kids that fit his system and his style of coaching. So Jaden Ivey would be successful in any number of other schools, but he was not a guaranteed thing out of high school. We all know that, but look at his pedigree.
Right. Oh, I mean, that's the thing. I always say a son of a coach is a big deal. His dad was a big time athlete. Those are big things. Still, this leap is awesome. And that's the whole thing. Like, we can, and people in the margin, maybe they don't understand how hard we are hit. People on, our Twitter. I mean, I get hit all the time with people that don't like Ivey. It blows my mind, because I'm like, okay, listen, you can get frustrated with a guy at times because he's inconsistent. He leaves his feet, doesn't know where he's going to go with it. His decision-making is a little flawed. Okay. But I don't get this, because this is a good kid. This is where I look at, like, okay, good teammate. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him off court. Right. And so I just get like, this stuff really bothers me after a while. And I start just saying, shut your face, because like, we look at this is the only guy on this team who can consistently take a game over. And he's the only guy on this team that throw everybody on my back, we're going to the promised land. There's nobody else in that locker room that can do that. Right.
Do we need to like rewatch the North Carolina game where he won that game for Purdue, playing against a bunch of 6'7" like uber athletes, top 25 recruits? The dude was the best player on the court there. And I think people look
at absurd, right? Just say that. That right there is absurd. A Purdue player is the best player on the court against North Carolina.
Purdue out-athleted North Carolina, a phrase I never thought I would say. But I think people look at someone like Jaden Ivey and they see him, going to the basket real hard, like being aggressive and being successful in doing that. But then sometimes like running into too much defense or like taking a bad shot or whatever. And they think that it's possible for him to 100% of the time anticipate the exact right move when he's so fast and dynamic and athletic. And this is part of the package. Like he's gonna attack the basket, and sometimes he's not gonna get a call. He's gonna run into 3 defenders and the ball's gonna bounce off the rim and it's not gonna go in, and you're gonna be like, well, why didn't he just pass it out or pull back or whatever? And like that's this is what you're signing up for, man. When you have a guy like that, this is what you sign up for, and you take the good with the bad, and the good is like 99.99%. And then everyone
good is better than anybody else's good, right?
Yeah.
That's the real point of it. It's not that we're gonna have some games that, he'll shoot the ball 100 times and make 5 of them, just like Carson, by the way, just like Carson, but better because his length and his ability to go up and wait for defenses to come down. That stuff is not normal, right? Carson was doing it with, I'm going to shoot right when I walk in the gym, right? It's going to be like that. But Jaden's doing it like, I'm going to go right into the teeth of your defense, jump, and I'm going to wait. Right? We haven't seen.
I will have a window. If I attack the basket, I will have a window.
Exactly.
And the thing with Ivy is that he's got great size. He's crazy athletic. He's super long, huge hands. He has all the tools, and you want him to do that. Now, would I want Eric Hunter Jr. to do that? No. Even though Hunter was an incredible scorer in high school, even though he's good with the ball and he can attack the basket, I don't want him taking those same risks. But I want Ivy to take those risks.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, didn't he miss? What was the game that he missed just to sit out because of the hip injury? Wasn't that like it was like Northwestern or Nebraska?
Northwestern on the road.
And didn't someone, Michael, was it you said there was immediately a thread that was like,
I mean,
maybe better off without him. Maybe
I'm not saying I don't want him around. I'm not saying he's not good, but Purdue looks pretty good without him. It's like, Northwestern, right? Like,
right. And that's the thing right there. Like, that's like the same conversation of us saying Purdue has the best athlete on the floor versus North Carolina. Okay, Purdue always has the best athlete on the floor versus Northwestern.
Right.
Right.
Even if Jaden's not playing.
Say that almost every year.
Even if Jaden's not playing.
So, but someone on that thread was like, y'all act like you just want this team to be full of Link Darners. Nothing against Link, who, was great and everything. Right. But the point there being is like, this is a different type of player. And
different dude, yeah.
And if you look at teams that are very good and that go far in the tournament and make a lot of noise, they have that guy.
There are good college players. There are good NBA players. There are very few that probably will be both. Purdue, in the last 30, 40 years, has had 2 of those. Glenn Robinson and Jaden.
Yeah.
So let's be cool here. Like, let's be appreciative. And Jaden isn't like one of those all tools players who's not productive. I mean, like, for Jabari Smith is probably going to be number 1. He has all of the tools, but he has all of the tools. He's going to go number 1 because of what he can do 5 years from now.
Yeah.
Because there's a really good chance 5 years from now he's Paul George.
How old is Jabari Smith?
He's like 19.
19.
So he, to me, that's the same issue. This is the funny thing. I keep saying this in QuickCast. I keep trying to hit this idea to people that we're seeing Jaden Ivey, and everybody, to me, it's so easy to see he's still raw. Like, he's a sophomore. He's a young sophomore.
Yeah.
This guy, his peak, I hope he gets what I think becomes what I think he's going to become. Smith probably will too. But the thing about Ivy, it just blows my mind at his upside, right? And I'm not, you guys know, especially you, Anish, you and I have talked about this 100 times about upside. It annoys me that NBA always drafts based on potential. But this is a guy, he's like, so let's say he has a really good hand. He's playing poker. He's like showing you, hey, I got a couple good cards. He's already started showing it, and he's still not even scratched the surface.
So to your point, it is I understand the frustration when it is a all potential guy that doesn't produce. Now, to Jabari Smith's credit, he's not one of those guys.
No,
he still
good.
produces. He's really good. Yeah. But there are those guys that go top 5 that don't produce in college and have all of the raw tools and are expected to do this, in the pros. Jaden produces. Like, Jaden, until this kind of late stretch, was like one of the kind of top front runners for Big Ten Player of the Year. He put his name in the conversation for National Player of the Year. He is, this, really high production college player, and he's going to be a top 5 pick. That's the thing. Like, we've had Carson Edwards, but the size isn't quite there. Biggie Swanigan, it's just not the style of the NBA. You can go on and on and on, but we've only had, in I think all of our lifetimes of rooting for Purdue, 2 players who are guaranteed to be really good at both the college and the NBA level. And so that's the thing.
Well, and so Ivy's a lottery ticket, right, to an NBA team, because that he's capable. He already has a lot of tools. Yeah. And to your point, Dowd, like, you watch him play and you're like, man, in 3 years, you are just going to be you have the potential to be unbelievable. And he's already really good right now. I mean, he is as fun of a player to watch as I can remember Purdue ever having. He is as fun of a player to watch as the Big Ten has had in recent memory. I mean, this guy is not just we were making fun of Luke Garza a little bit for being
right.
but like for being him, and Purdue has plenty of guys that only Purdue fans can love.
Right.
But Jaden is
that guy was a guy that only Iowa fans could love, and he was National Player of the Year. I mean, it's got to kind of blow all of our minds, right? You're like, that guy won National Player of the Year.
Crash winning the Oscar Picture of the Year.
Yeah, I was like, really? Are we doing this? Okay.
Like 5 years from now, are we going to feel good about this?
Yeah. So do you think? So let's you guys have watched things. Like I remember being at Purdue without Glenn Robinson. Okay. So Glenn Robinson left after my freshman year, and watching highlights of other teams, I'm like, man, wish Purdue had a guy like that. Right. And so you watch Ivy, he's the guy like that. He's the guy that they want to feature on commercials. He's the guy that you want to tune in to see. Does he have it tonight? Is he have that chip on his shoulder? Is he going to glare at the camera again? Now he's had that moment, right?
So I'm saying this with a picture of Carson Edwards on my wall.
Right.
He is like, I love small guards that just catch fire. There was no threat, minimal threat. Carson Edwards exploding to the rim, right? Over the last
unless you're
IU. Over the last few, which is that painting, by the way, over the last couple of games, Jaden has not had a great shooting game. He's not had it going. That being said, he had the signature play of the Big Ten season last game.
No doubt. Yeah.
That was that baseline jam out of nowhere. There's nothing. There were two defenders between him and the rim.
They both had angle, by the way. Both players had angle.
It's just defense. Like I can't even be in the frame of mind to be able to see that. Like I feel like I've watched enough basketball and I've got a good feel of it, and I know I can't even fathom what he was seeing, right? Because he knows he can just jump over him, and that's the thing. It doesn't. He said
he saw the defender look in. That's all it was enough.
And it's just like, what? What are you talking about?
And if I'm remembering correctly, he had 25 points in that game on 11 shots. So even though he is not shooting super great, the dude's attacking. He's getting to the line and he's hitting his free throws.
He had 15 free throws, 15 of 18. I was just looking at that.
To Anisha's point, and Dowd, you made this point too about players that Purdue has and hasn't had over the years. The first game that I think of is the Sweet 16 game when Purdue was a 4 seed and they played Kansas. And this was, I believe, Hummel's last game as a Boilermaker. And
Purdue was a 10. Purdue was a 10, weren't they?
No, this was
Kansas, who was a 2.
Was that the one that Purdue was way ahead?
I'm mixing two games. Yes, you are right. They were a 4 in like 2017 or something like that. But in that game, Purdue hung pretty tight with Kansas through the first half, and then just got friggin' boat raced in the second half. Yeah. And you looked at those two squads, and you said there is no one on Purdue who could match up with the starting 5 on Kansas. Yep. Not even, I mean, like Hummel, sure, maybe a little bit, but like iffy, to be honest. Yeah. And now you look at Purdue, and I'd put them up against Auburn. I'd put them up against Kentucky. I'd put them up against these teams and say, that average is brought up by Ivy. I get that. But this is a grown man's basketball team. This goes back to something Newbert would say about Purdue football in the post-Hazel era, which was the off-the-bus test. Does this look like a football team getting off the bus?
Right.
And the answer recently has been yes. And the answer with Purdue basketball is, does this look like a team, long and lean and athletic, that could really make a difference? And the answer to me is yes. They've got, I mean, even guys like Morton, his fingers drag on the floor. He's got big hands. He does a lot of stuff. Like, he's got like that basketball body that you need to be successful
at the Y.
Yeah. No, like Jay, this is funny because I think you we've talked about this. My comparison to Kip Jones, like, you got to be old to appreciate it. Kip Jones had a long NBA career. The dude looked like you said, a Y player or like somebody's uncle who came and just schooled you. But that's really what Ethan Morton is, because you're like, okay, long arms, lots of tools. I think you were going to see a different Ethan Morton. He took a huge step this year. But I think I've been on the Ethan Morton thing for a little bit because I watched him in high school. I was like, man, this guy's kind of special. So he's different than Ivy because that top end speed Ivy has and the athleticism. Obviously, Morton's not in that conversation, but the length matters and the shooting ability to come in cold and hit anytime matters, right? That's a different mentality, really. So
he's where Gillis was last year in terms of contributing in that way, because Gillis last year would come in, he'd grab a bunch of rebounds, he'd play good defense, and he'd hit like 1-3 a game. Mm-hmm. And you're like, this is good contribution, Mason. Thank you for this. And then this year, like Gillis is a killer. They're running plays for Mason Gillis, a guy who we all thought was going to be pretty good out of high school, but it was like,
we stole Mason Gillis. Let's be real honest. I keep telling people this one. The dude was injured his senior year, so Purdue just got so lucky. Nobody got to see what Mason Gillis really is, right? He was that guy his junior year, but he was a junior. He was a little bit undersized, but he's a banger, right?
Yeah, he's the last person on the Purdue roster that I would want to get in a fight with.
Oh, we talked about this in the group chat, I think. He is – I put it out there, and you guys were like, it's Gillis. No close second.
Yeah,
it's the which Big Ten coach would you want to fight? Oh, other than Juwan Howard is number one.
You want to fight least.
It should,
that just because you've seen him throw.
No, because I'm not.
He's big. And
I'm not
messing
with Juwan
He's
Howard.
not that far removed from his career compared to the other guys.
Is he 6'10", 6'11", or is he
9?
No, he's like 6'9", 6'10". He's either way. He's to the level of tall where I cannot tell.
I think it's Fran. Sorry.
You just think Fran would be dirty.
That's what I said in the chat.
Never stops raging.
Yeah.
He doesn't ever settle down.
He wakes up in the morning, gets a glass of water, and his face is already flush.
He gets up in the morning, gets a glass of water, grabs some crushed glass and snacks on it, and then just his head starts popping off.
And if the paper isn't at the end of the driveway when he wants it,
somebody's gonna pay.
Fran is the team that could either go out in the first round of the tournament or could win the whole dang thing.
Yeah, he's the Florida Gulf Coast of fighting Big Ten coaches.
No, stop it.
I
thought you meant basketball-wise.
I said this in the chat. Like, he will punch you in the balls.
Oh, fight-wise.
Gouge your eyes out. Like, he probably has a sieve that he carved himself out of a pen.
I completely forgot, by the way, until you guys shared that power ranking someone. I completely forgot that Danny Manning is a Big Ten coach.
Danny Manning.
Yeah.
Danny Manning.
You talk about length. That's the thing. As a short guy, I can tell you.
The reach.
Man, the reach
Doesn't he still look like he's about 25? And he's got to be 55.
Yeah, he looks great.
He was on the 88 Kansas team.
Yeah.
Now let's see how he looks after a year of coaching Maryland basketball.
Well, fair. He won't look very good in a year. He'll look like Mark Turgeon.
It'll be like those pictures that they show of the president, like on inauguration, and then 8 years later, they're all just like zombified.
Let me ask you a question about something that I wrestle with. You guys know I wrestle with. The three of you do. But is this something that you guys have your full head and heart and hands around? The idea. And we wrestle with this during football season, but the idea that Purdue, that we're not going to see guys get to where we hope they would get during their career. So so if you guys say, okay, there's more in the pipeline. Like I saw somebody said it, maybe Anish, you flashed it up and I just didn't read it, but that really athletic point guard who's a huge upside.
Trey Gibbs,
Yeah, Gibbs, he's another guy like that. So he's 2 years away, though. He's not next year. I don't think he's reclassifying. Mm-hmm. So Purdue is going to have these guys every couple of years that you're like, okay, it's going to be sophomore or junior year, but they're going to leave, right? Like, it's a harder thing for me to get my head around for a lot of reasons. But the big one is I'm like, is it this year that he takes his step? Or is it next year? Do I have to really say, oh, man, I got to get to a bunch of games because I'm not going to see this guy again? I just can't get used to it yet. I'm so used to the Ryan Smith model, right? Where we're like, okay, good dude, gonna get better, son of a coach, solid player, gritty.
Coach on the floor.
kind of a gym rat.
Here's the thing. There are tiers of college basketball.
Yeah.
And it is really hard to move between tiers. And Purdue right now, I believe as a program, because I'm feeling optimistic, is in a transitory period where they're moving up a tier. And part of that process of moving up a tier means that you go through these like growing pains of like, well, how do we recruit now? How do we develop now? How do we adjust the style of play? Because we're going to bring in a guy who's like pretty good, but still kind of raw because Purdue isn't going to be getting those top 10, shooting guards every year. It's going to be a bit of a process. And so we're probably going to see a thing where Purdue's going to achieve a fairly high this year. It's going to logically, they're going to hit a dip next year, comparatively, at least. They're going to build back up again, and we're going to sort of go there and break through.
Different reason, but it's going to be fun.
Yeah. But, I mean, like the big question about next year is Zach and what happens with Zach and what kind of his major decision is, right? But I think Purdue is not – so Purdue has to build a team in this era very differently than Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
Kentucky has that problem where they know that at least 25% of their roster is gone after 1 year, right? So it's actually a really weird challenge that Cal has. By the way, Cal has a team this year that could win the title. For the first time after a couple of years,
that's my favorite right now.
He's kind of figured it out, and that is a really good Kentucky team.
Well, they're getting better every week right now. That's the thing. It's scary. You got all that talent, and they seem to be gelling now.
But he went all in on the one and dones and swept them all. And that was kind of when he made his first push. And then he realized that then Duke caught up with him on the one and dones, that all of these other kind of, like Michael, you said, these top tier teams kind of caught up with him and caught up with Kentucky, and the talent disparity, wasn't there. And so all of a sudden you have these teams that are well balanced with high level 1 year talent with this kind of stable of, 4-year role players that are going to be there. Kind of instant 3-4 year role players out of these institutional knowledge teams. Purdue isn't quite there because still the majority of the team is going to play 4 years. Mason Gillis is going to be a 4-year player. Right. Yeah. And that's awesome. Like Mason being a 4-year player is a foundation now in college basketball. Right. Like all of a sudden, who your power forward is going to be for 4 years. Right. And he can move down to the 3, he can move up to the 5. We'll see what happens with Trey Kaufman-Renn next year and whether he ends up.
He's a wing, man.
He's a wing,
yeah,
exactly. So he won't be
a power forward.
In my wildest dreams, he's a 3, and it just kills everything.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fun to see Mason slide to the 5 after this year. Mason slide to the 5, see Trey Kaufman-Renn on the on the wing at the 4. That'll be just really fun to see. But all of a sudden, players like that are your foundation. Players like Sasha, who seemingly has been in the Big Ten for 14 years now. Other Big Ten teams hate Sasha like they hated Rob, because they were like, why is this guy not?
So.
I don't know. I don't know why you would hate him. He's living his life. He's collecting his pension. He's just living out his golden years.
He's been in the league long enough that he lost his hair.
I'm pretty sure he looked like that as a freshman.
You guys see on Twitter somebody threw, and I don't know, maybe this person's in the margins over here. Somebody we're connected to, I can't remember, put their daughter's haircut and compared it to Sasha's and put a picture and added Sasha, and he said, why are you throwing these bombs my way? Something like that. I was like, whoa, what's going on? Friendly fire here.
Shots fired.
Mercy.
I bet it was funny though.
What'd you say?
I bet it was funny though. Here's the thing with what Anish is describing, what that does as far as the makeup of Purdue's roster in recent years and into the future is that it raises the floor for this team, which is we still have an opportunity to get special players that raise that ceiling in the way that Carson raises the ceiling, in the way that Ivy has raised the ceiling. But now we're dealing with a floor that's much higher than it's been in the past. Yeah. Great job, Ultimate Boiler. That was awesome.
What did he say? I didn't see it.
He was the one who did the Sasha.
It was his cute little daughter.
That was me.
I think she's blonde haired, but she's got a wispy thing happening right here. Mm-hmm. Ultimate Boiler says, man, I was like, I saw it. I was like, oh, shoot. Like, right when I saw it, I couldn't believe.
Did you feel like a little bad for laughing about it?
Yeah, really. This is, that's.
So I have to just go a quick callback here because when we were chatting, we were kind of on a roll there, and John Faker we were talking about Northwestern, and he said he said Northwestern has Pete Nance, and is like, well, maybe we shouldn't play him much.
I don't understand it. Hey, there's a player who's got a really good NBA dad and a really good NBA brother.
And some chose to go to Northwestern.
Listen, you have to rest him for the tournament.
That's true.
Well, the weird thing is, like, have you guys heard Newbert just shred Northwestern about Nance? They're like, he's like, I don't know what they're doing with him. I don't know what. Like, Newbert doesn't really take shots at other teams. That's kind of not a Purdue.
Oh, but when he does,
yeah, and
he's the best.
I don't understand. I watch Northwestern. I'm like, clearly he's the best player on your team.
Chris Collins was.
What are you doing with him?
Chris Collins was the heir apparent to K. Can you imagine?
Oh my gosh,
Chris Collins helped recruit Shire.
Yeah,
that was like his first big get as an assistant coach for K, was getting Shire, and now Shire got the job.
Yeah, because Collins is bad.
he's not. He had a couple of good years at the beginning because the bar is just so low at Northwestern.
That's what you're remembering. I just looked into this. I like to get into these little rabbit holes. He's had one good year. The year they went to the tournament.
And had that really good white kid who chose Northwestern over Purdue. What was his name, Manish?
Ryan McIntosh.
Yep.
Yeah,
McIntosh.
Screw that guy. Sorry. I mean, like,
and
why
Purdue
would you
needed him.
He has more he has more NCAA tournament wins than AJ Hammonds, Ray Davis.
Than Ray Davis. Speaking of the perfect player for this Purdue team, like Ray Davis, just drop him.
That's a fun game.
He's the perfect player for pretty much any.
Oh my God!
I think Chris Kramer. I think
Kramer or Davis. I mean, those are the two, right?
The reason I like Kramer more than Davis is he's a little quicker with the ball in his hands, and I was like, man, a quick, smart point guard who plays lockdown defense. Forget about it. This team, you can just say we're going to skip to the national.
Lewis Jackson.
Speaking of Lou Jack, I mean, like these dudes that were just tough and defensive minded, like defensive minded wings that were like, fine, I don't need to touch the ball. I'll just shut down the other teams. You know,
the thing about Ray is that it was the defense, but what enabled him to be such a good defender, which was his mentality. Because when he was in high school, he was not a defender. He was a score first, ball dominant guy, hothead, getting texts every third game. And then he came to Purdue and it was like, hey, man, you want to play? Like, you play good defense and you'll get out on that court because as good as you are with the ball and scoring, you are just another guy in Division I college basketball.
Like when I would say, so like, let's say Kramer and Davis, let's use both these guys, because I think both of them, I think Purdue fans and national fans sleep a bit on the athleticism of these two. Like both of those guys are
Kramer was just ridiculous.
For Davis, I'll accept that. Chris Kramer can probably still bench more than any player. On the
Chris Kramer, but Davis though, the one thing that kind of put me back on my heels. I don't know if you guys saw this because it was one of those things that it floated around on the Knucklehead board. I didn't see it on Twitter that much, but it was Ray Davis doing a box jump that was 60 inches. Do you guys remember that? I was like, because one of those foam pad box jumps, right? Yeah. And he did it. And I was like, so that dude just put his feet above my head. It was a ridiculous number.
And he's an average athlete.
Right.
Like, big deal. What are we talking about here?
Give me a break, man.
Well, what we're talking about is like the difference between someone who's capable of playing and just like normal humans. I mean, that's exceptional for anyone. I mean, that's just the hair below Ronald Moore there's plenty of.
He just call him Ronald Moore.
Yeah, I did, and I was hoping
he was trying to plow through it. I was just letting him dig. I was just letting him dig.
Call me out. As soon as I said it,
I'm like, who's he talking about?
He's talking about Ronald Norred. You know Ronald Norred, the really great athlete in Butler basketball back in the day?
Ronald Norred is.
Your point about athletes, we do this on the Bold Sports group chat probably once a month, right? When we see a clip like the one Super Bowl Sunday of Mike Tyson. Yeah. First of all,
it was who was it?
Brandon Marshall.
Brandon Marshall, not to marry.
First of all, you don't go up behind a pro boxer,
Mike,
especially a crazy pro boxer, and jab him in the kidney from behind. That is never a good idea.
What happens if Iron Mike seems to have his life together? Iron Mike is in a really good place right now. Yeah. What happens if you poke him in the ribs and all of a sudden he flashes back to a time when his life wasn't that good? All of a sudden, you're gone.
You're dead.
You're talking to God next.
Yeah.
That's over.
Marshall soiled himself. I think one of you said that. It really looked like he. Ooh, man.
And
that was Ronald Moore does your taxes. Says.
Yeah,
you guys are on fire tonight.
I'm happy to have never lived that down because that was
nice work. That was great.
That was the worst.
That was tremendous.
Ron Moore. Ron Moore. That's
Big
what we should have
Ron.
called him when he was there.
Big Ron.
Ronnie Moore. Oh my goodness.
You know what? And now that I've said it once, like I'm just guaranteed to
you're gonna lean into it.
So good.
The rest
Well,
of
you know, I want to go back to one
like
other
that.
thing before we presumably wind this down. I mean, or we could just do all our basketball beats concurrently. Like we could just do them all right now.
Let's just bank them now.
Let's just keep going.
And then when we edit them, just cut them up into different episodes.
Sure.
Just one marathon. No, but you guys were talking earlier. I thought it was interesting when you were saying it. I was looking back at the last month-ish of games, and I forget which one of you said it, but it was you guys still talking about how tough it is to win 4 in a row with your defense, the way Purdue's defense can sometimes be.
Yeah.
However, from the Indiana loss, which we know could easily have been a win, but from then to their next loss against Michigan, they beat Northwestern. They won on the road at Iowa, beat Ohio State, at Minnesota, beat Michigan, and then beat Illinois, all in consecutive. Six
you see the
in a
problem
row.
there, right there. You see the problem right there, though, right?
No, 6 wins is all you need.
I know what you're saying, but look at those teams that are mixed in. They're not all tournament teams, right?
No, but
that's where you lose the Big Ten, though, right? I mean, like those are, and I know none of us really care about the Big Ten this year in regular season. It's just to set up the tournament. But that being said, you got to kind of win them sequentially, right? Like you kind of got to first, like
you don't get
really
your seed if you're.
It's the no dumb losses thing.
That's the stretch where you take a dumb loss, and they didn't. Right, and after IU kind of.
Although everybody on Purdue's schedule right now is trying to make every game look like a dumb game because it is so bad what they're doing to Purdue's strength of schedule right now. Like I'm watching all these teams, I'm like they are just absolutely peeing down their leg. It's
the Big Ten regular season is absolutely brutal because there's only a handful of teams that are not really capable of being competitive.
Right. So let me ask you guys a question real quickly about the NCAA tournament as it approaches, because I'm still befuddled about what happened with the Big Ten and what didn't happen with other teams. And I think I've got my hands around it. I talked about it after the fallout where all the Big Ten teams were out of it by the round of 16. Okay. Now, like, the Big Ten this year has been a meat grinder. We've seen evidence as we've watched over and over and over. These teams coming off the court, and they're like, man, this is a tough stretch, whatever. Purdue, obviously, it's been close to home, right? We've actually watched the Pac-12 start to get a little bit of that meat grinder feel where you're like, okay, Arizona, UCLA, USC have all run into teams that maybe they shouldn't lose to, and they're at least getting challenged. So did we see last year where the Pac-12 just absolutely went crazy in the NCAA tournament? Was that a product of them not playing a full season and being fresh, and the Big Ten was just beaten down? Or was it something else? Is it just the Big Ten can't do it anymore?
I don't believe the narratives around the Big Ten can't do it anymore because I don't know what that means. Like, what do you mean? Like, This is not a homogenous unit that operates in any way consistently from year to year. But I do think that, I'm sure that having a little bit more rest, like that would tend to help. I'm hoping that works in Purdue's favor this year with a week off.
How many years has it been where you can name more than one dynamic guard in the Big Ten, let alone 2? Right. And those are usually the guys that you need in the tournament, right? Dynamic, ball dominant guards and these like larger than life wings. You have to be a great big to be able to take over like Karl Anthony Towns in college was like the level of big, like Anthony Davis were the levels of bigs that you kind of need to be to take over. You can be that steady engine that gives a team its floor, but to push in the tournament, usually you need ball dominant guards. My reason, again, I also completely agree with Michael that it's like not every team in the Big Ten plays the same. They don't play nearly the same, so you can't really ascribe it to everybody in the Big Ten. That being said, how many times have these kind of guards ended up in the Big Ten? Carson Edwards this year, Johnny Davis, and Mason Gillis. Good Lord, Johnny Davis, and our boy Jaden.
The other guy,
the other guy, the guy that he's good.
He's commonly mistaken
the future Indiana Pacer. I don't want to curse him any more than he's already cursed. Why would I do that to him? But it's like those the missing ingredients there. And that being said, it's like I think Wisconsin and Purdue could kind of do it because of those two guys. Why would you doubt that? Iowa can't because they're terrible always. Michigan State, Michigan State's bad. Kind of just running through the Big Ten. It's like
Illinois, man.
Illinois is great. I mean,
dude, they're so deep. Great. They got so many guys that can score. They're a lot like Purdue, but they don't have Jaden Ivey, right? But you know what else they have is crazy. Underwood has made those guys all like just absolute badasses. Like everybody on the court's mean as hell.
Yeah.
Purdue is not mean.
But I think coaching matters too. And especially when you get late into the tournament, I think Purdue has had some really good coaches, but then has also had Mark Turgeon. So like that's part of this. That's part of this as well. And I think that'll ultimately limit Illinois, although their age and experience and Cockburn is gonna, score a bunch. But
I'm here for any Mark Turgeon jokes, by the way.
What's that?
I'm here for any Mark Turgeon jokes, by the way.
We know it.
Just
you guys know.
There's a comment over here that I want to address really quickly. Harsha says Purdue isn't going to shift tiers to some extent. This is Painter below. Not sure how institutional it is, but our big stars will still be overlooked, underdog types with something to prove. Okay, so. Yeah. What would Purdue have to do? This is an interesting statement, but what does Purdue have to do to get to the next tier? This is very easy. Win one more game in the tournament, really, right?
Right.
That's it.
I did. Yeah.
The media is dying for Purdue to make a Final Four. I mean, like this was kind of the argument we got to at the beginning of the year, right? Which is like no non-Final Four team has gotten as much love this year as Purdue. Nobody with a track record of not getting there has gotten more love than Purdue this year. Everybody wants Matt Painter to go, like to win one more game.
They all love him.
And so to me, it's like, first of all, Purdue is never going to be a blue blood. I mean, that's just what it is. Which is fine. That is that kind of that. What
aren't they in the next tier?
But what we want to be is that solid everybody else, right?
Here's what the media wants Purdue to be, Anish, in my opinion. The media wants Purdue to become Jay Wright and Villanova.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really simple. I think they're close, right? I think there's a lot of similarities with the fact that Painter, if he goes to the Final Four, right away, he takes his seat in a small, a place where you're like, these are elite coaches.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at these top 10 lists of preseason, off-season rankings, of whatever best coaches, Matt Painter's top 15 every time, and the only reason they don't put him top 10, top 5 is because he's never been to a Final Four or championship game. Yeah, I mean, they want to do this. So the goal, J Money, the goal is that next tier. And I think Purdue is there. I don't know what else you need to see, even if Purdue doesn't kind of make a Final Four run this year, like what we want to. Purdue is always going to win the Big Ten. The Big Ten is always, or every other year, going to win the Big Ten. The Big Ten is going to be one of the best conferences of the year, best conferences in the country every year. And that means Purdue is always there. And so that's kind of where we want to be, right?
So given that, here's my question, since we're an hour and 22 minutes in. Will Matt Painter take Purdue to a Final Four in the next 5 years?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Which is stunning that 3 years ago asked us this question. And we were
3 years ago.
And it's not this year.
And it's you need that gif of the.
So here's my thing, and I'm glad to be. You feel free to at me and tell me that I'm wrong when I'm wrong, right?
No one ever does.
That's what I use all my burner Twitter accounts for. It's just to pretend to be a Michigan State.
Look at this dipshit. Let me tell him what an idiot he is.
Purdue has a bad defense. And Purdue has, for a Final Four team, an outlier bad defense, right? The other thing is
LBD has been hitting me with data harder than anything that I brought.
We knew it. We knew it.
When you go back and hear the first 5 or 10 minutes of this show, we talked about your quick cast where you talked analytics, and Michael said that the credit should go to LBD because you don't
with
do
an
your own
exception.
research.
Okay, so I started it. This is the problem. So he's gonna be like he's gonna go into
He's a big
stats
ideas guy.
analytics. Okay,
Big
but I was like, I wanted something to back up my gut feeling, so I started doing research.
That's what it's there for.
He went and he made a chart that is like 40 teams deep, and he color coded them.
Let me describe.
Good, red is bad. Purdue is way down here this year, guys.
Let me describe what actually happened because I know this is what happened. LBD is sitting there at the computer doing his homework, being a good student or whatever. Dowd walks in sandals, a board shorts, no shirt, with a drink.
Yes,
and says, "Hey, I wonder if Purdue's defense matches up," and then leaves. And then LBD does 2 hours.
I don't know this Purdue defense got what it takes, bro.
And then LBD gets done 2 hours later. Dowd's passed out, face down on the couch, feet hanging over the armrest.
Yes,
that is exactly what happened. Mr. Big Ideas. To your point, Dowd, about like, oh yes, Purdue will go to a Final Four, but not this year. If you project me 5 years into the future, and I know that, then like. Purdue's program is, if you think about it, that is a pretty good spot for Purdue's program to be in. As good as this team is, for it to be surpassed by a team in the future,
you would waste time travel that way. All I want to know is Purdue win a title.
We would all.
I want to know.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything else.
We would all do it. We would use time travel to go forward 2 months just to be like, okay, how should we feel right now?
I waste time travel to see what the next big breakthrough was for cereal, like really good sugary cereal.
I can't find fault with that.
It's been a while since cereal really had a breakthrough.
Yeah, it's time. Right. We're long overdue.
Right.
We're long overdue.
Two things in the numbers before, as we again do our traditional half an hour wind down of a podcast.
Yeah, the Midwest goodbye over here.
Yeah, exactly.
It's been 30 minutes since Jay was like, "Well, I'm going to wrap it up."
The Midwest goodbye.
Usually, so at the Ken Pom end of year rankings, usually it's a little inflated at the end of the year because, of course, the good teams that went far in the tournament beat really good teams, and that's kind of what. But we all know that, and it's kind of built into the thing, which is why you like even when you were analyzing it, you were kind of giving a little bit of leeway there. Yeah. That being said, what we have to be comfortable with is this question. Are we watching the outlier team? And I think that was my argument from a couple weeks ago, and kind of the dead legs kind of have blunted the numbers a little bit, where Purdue was runaway Ken Pom's best offensive team ever. And so eventually one of these really great offensive teams and really bad, mediocre to bad defensive teams is breaking through. And so the question is, does this Purdue team, outside of the numbers, does this profile of a team with 2 deep bigs, with wings, a whole plethora of wings that can shoot, and with Jaden Ivey, this the shape of a team that could buck that trend?
They could.
And my answer is yes.
Yeah, they could. It's
so when I get deep into this, because I've looked at this, there are really 2 teams that you could look at that are like, in the last 20 years, you guys have seen what I thought. But there are 2 teams I would say that split. You'd say, which one is Purdue this year? Are they Missouri from, is it 2011 with Haith as the coach? Or are they 2003 Marquette? Okay. That Missouri team was a number 2 seed. That Missouri team had some pros on it. That Missouri team was like 103rd in defense and 2nd in offense.
Did they go to the Final Four in 2011?
No, they got beaten in the first round.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's what I was like, I don't
15.
remember that at all.
It was brutal.
Yes.
Now, the thing for me is like, I can sit here and I can logic my way into either point of view that Anish has or that Dowd has. But if I break it down more simply, I look at this team and I say, there is not a single team in the nation that I would feel like Purdue didn't have a better than average shot against. Sure, that does not mean that they would beat every team, but like you roll the ball out versus Kentucky versus
I'd be
Auburn,
really worried
Arizona,
about Kentucky.
Kentucky is kind of the one.
Well, Kentucky's. I'm not saying
in the
they're not
Final
good.
Four, though, guys. That's the thing.
Exactly.
Like,
yes.
We're at the
Kentucky,
point.
you're in the Final Four.
Yes.
So that's
I feel
problem for me, right?
good.
The thing that I'm worried about, and I will continue to be worried about, is the team on the bubble. And I keep saying Virginia. I don't know what their record is right now, but Virginia specifically, who has athletes, who has great defense, that type of team that would just throw the wet blanket on Purdue's offense and just kind of poke you in the eye for 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dang, nabbit.
Let me give you a terrible scenario. Let's say Purdue is a 2, which is what it looks like,
Yep.
and the 7-10 game contains Beard in Texas.
Shut
Exactly.
up. Shut.
I just ruined
You're
it.
a jerk.
Go
You're a
to-
mean
go
old
to
man,
hell.
Jay Money.
Go straight to hell. I can't say what I really want to say
Exactly.
in this, but I'll text
Me
it to
neither.
you later. Okay.
I think that's a really fair worry. And I agree. I mean, like, and honestly, the more times than not, when you ask, is a thing the outlier, the answer is no, right? I mean, like, that's the point of an outlier. But it's also kind of the we also have to acknowledge that this team does have the characteristics to do it. Was there a notable player, Dowd, on the 2003, 2004, or 2000?
Well, there wasn't just
2003
There were
Marquette
three
team?
on that Marquette team.
Okay.
You're
Three
asking
players
rhetorically, right?
went on to have multi-year NBA careers on that Marquette team. But the big difference
Multi-year.
between that Marquette team and this Purdue team isn't Dwayne Wade versus Jaden Ivey to me. It's the point guard play. It was a white guy. You guys would remember him right away.
They all look the same.
They all look the same to me. They sound the same. They all do the same. But that guy, that point guard was the key, because they had a point guard who was really, really good with the ball, made really good decisions, and could hit threes when you left him open.
Yeah.
So like that to me might be the
Green,
difference. If we see the best version of Eric Hunter, and we see the best version of Jaden Ivey, and we see the best version of Zach Edey / Trey Williams,
And
I'd say you're in deep shit, America. The rest of the field, you don't want any of this, right?
No. One thing that I said kind of when you were, so first you were right in that Purdue like completely got screwed at the behest of Michigan, because like our schedule got rearranged to accommodate Michigan, right? That being said, the benefit of that is that you go into the Big Ten tournament into March with rested up. And so there's no kind of excuses there. That's good.
Right.
That's
Real
really good.
Real good.
Sorry, I interrupted. J Money, what'd you say?
I have no idea what I'm
Gone.
saying.
The thought is gone.
It's been too long.
Gone.
It's
been multiple seconds.
It's been multiple seconds. I have no idea. I was thinking about Tom Crean going to a Final Four, and
so
blinked by.
Usually Jay has a butler who's assigned to take notes and remind him of where he is. But again, we're nearing the end of a quarter. The death match has already happened. He's down 3 butler staff. So this is sort of where we are.
Supply chains.
You know, he can't find anyone to work for minimum wage.
What makes? By the way, I have a complete. This isn't what I was. I had something related to Purdue, but I don't remember what it was. Oh no, I do remember what it was. You were rattling off if it's the best version of this, the best version of this. Yeah. The most important one out of the guys you just said, obviously you need Ivy to be Ivy.
Right.
But I think you can probably count on him to, when the lights come up in March, to
it seems like
play. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Hunter's the one to me.
Absolutely.
If he runs backwards against pressure, I'm a little concerned, because they're going to play a team early that is going to be like, well, all we can hope for is to pressure them into mistakes, because we can't out-athlete them.
Right. For me,
it's Texas, for example, just to throw a team out there. Sorry.
For me, it's Sasha. It's Sasha. I mean, you need Hunter to play well. I get it. You need him to limit mistakes.
I think Sasha. I'm not worried about Sasha.
But if he goes 1 for 5 in a game, Purdue loses.
But they've already won that way. Like, see, that's the thing that's interesting.
I don't think they lose, Michael.
Yeah.
If Sasha has a 1 for 5 game, I don't think that's the death knell. Not when you have Edey and Trevion and we've talked about this at the beginning of the season. Mason Gillis. How deep is this team?
Very good.
There's so many opportunities to overcome that.
They're still damn deep, right? They still have guys. This is the funny thing. Paint talked about this in his show this week. I think he talked about, I didn't go with Isaiah as much because, right? So like you've seen Thompson, his minutes have shrunk down a little bit.
Yeah.
Thompson still has been coming off the bench, being real smart with the ball, doing really, really good things. Thompson has limitations, but limitations for a 6th, 7th, 8th man, he's pretty damn good in that position, right? Pretty
Right.
good. So as a starter, though, on the other hand, when you put Thompson in the starting lineup, you're like, oh man, this is a tough thing because the problems become really easy to see really quick.
Before we wrap, we're getting there, right? I have a completely unrelated thing I discovered tonight about college basketball that I have to share, and it's women's college basketball. So I'm sure Bowler Dad knows this before I don't know. The LSU women's basketball. Do you know they have a guard who wears number 3, and her last name is Pointer?
That's awesome.
Oh, that's
It's
great.
3-pointer on
The
her
branding
back.
is so good.
It's so
amazing.
Good.
And she's a good
NIL
shooter.
stuff here.
It reminds me of in the bubble when they could put, the NBA teams could put like little, like whatever they wanted to.
Yes.
They could pick from like a certain
I'm
thing.
so excited as to
And
where this is
one
going.
of them was vote. So you could do vote
4.
and then 4 and then Millsap.
Millsap, yes. Yes.
That's quite the evolution from the he hate me.
He ate me. World be free. Vote for Millsap.
Yeah.
Vote for
Oh, it's the best.
Yeah. By the way, I agree with Ultimate Boiler who says 23-24.
23-24 is the Final Four year.
That's the
world.
team.
What a
And I'll
time
tell
to
you
be
what, that
alive.
team looks like to me on paper. It looks like Gonzaga from last year, but with a Big Ten schedule. So
Wow.
they're-
By the way,
Gonzaga.
Dowd just invoked Gonzaga in a favorable
in a
way.
non-pejorative.
Right.
I
And the reason is the point guard, Suggs versus Gibbs. That's it.
No. I stopped listening after you said this.
Yeah,
I have no idea what you said.
Yeah.
I just know that something that it's rare in this world that we witness something happening for the
I
first
got in a debate on Twitter with a 4-year-old who goes to Gonzaga, I think, who tried to tell me that Gonzaga's schedule's really hard. And I was like, shut up, dude. He's like, we had to play 5 hard games. And I was like, shut
in
up.
November.
Purdue played
And then
14 in conference, numbnuts.
I was on Twitter the other day arguing with this 4-year-old.
and I showed him. I think
He was a Gonzaga student, and I was looking at his picture. I was like, this is like a really young person. I was like, all right, I'm saying one more thing. I'm gonna throw my last thing, and I'm muting him, which is that's my move. So, and I did, but I was like, come on, man, let's just.
Well, I will say you've evolved a little bit on Gonzaga. You used to hate Gonzaga with reason because early in
they never did anything. They never
did anything. And remember when that Purdue team, was it the 2000 team, just smoked them in the Sweet 16? I remember that was a high point in your life. And
awesome.
Now I think you would agree that Few has built they're legitimately very, very,
very good. Their conference is still Smurfs.
That does not change the fact that their conference is a joke.
Right.
The one down thing though is that the Pac-12 is not letting them in. I mean, that's the other thing is that they don't really have a move right
they
now.
want to go away. Somebody would find a place.
They can't because they have no football. So the other thing is can Gonzaga be in the Big East, which would be
hilarious.
Probably.
Geography doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not going to travel to friggin' St. John's every year. Come on.
Big 12? You don't think the Big 12 would take Gonzaga?
So here's what: if college football moves from a Power 5 to a Power 4, that's kind of that's the road, right? Where they end up the same thing as Oklahoma State and the Texas teams, and
I feel like we need to warn people that this topic could go on with the 4 of us for the next 2 hours.
Will in the group chat, so we should probably end it.
We have the same conversation with the same people making the same points on this topic once every 4 months. It goes on. It lasts multiple days.
It's great.
And there's no new information.
I would like to.
Let's talk about something important that's related to this.
New topic.
Can Mark Few get his teeth fixed, or are we not going to know? You make $1 bazillion a year? Come
Might
on,
as well ask Michael
Skeletor.
Strahan
Let's
to
do
do
something about that picket fence, brother.
Goodness.
Thanks for listening to the
I need to wait. We need to thank, because we've not done a good job of this. We need to thank our sponsors.
I
Martin
assumed you guys
Vintage.
had already done that 3 or 4 times.
We're really
I'm
bad
surprised
at
we
this.
still have sponsors.
We do somehow. We pay them. Martin Vintage.
Exactly.
Enter Boiled at checkout. Get 15% off. Great t-shirts. Go to Gridiron Metalworks. Enter Boiled at checkout. Correct. That's still a thing there, right? And get a discount there. And then, of course, when you're in Lafayette, or in West Lafayette, in fact, in Lafayette, do whatever you want. And you're in West Lafayette, eat AJ's. Go to AJ's, eataj's.com. And who else? Anyone else? Do we have any more sponsors? I've lost track at this point.
The BoiledSports.com fan store.
The only fans.
The only fan store.
I don't know if there's anything left.
We're advertising the OnlyFans now? I thought that was just for the 4 of us.
You'll discover it. The internet's a deep place.
Get on there and search for it. You'll find
deep, dark, horrible place, but wonderful at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, that was good. I feel like I need a
basketball beat, right? That's what this was, right? That's officially.
And final shouts to John Faker for just like dunking on me and just like driving me into the dirt for the first few minutes of this.
Chris Harder says everyone's facial hair is on point. That's nice.
Except for
mine doesn't come through because of all the white. You guys know I have a full beard right now, and it's white. Yeah, it's really great.
Oh, so you and I are on the same.
It's white here and it's white here. It's really great.
I'm starting to get the gray chin, which is how you know. I know.
I've got like a little bit of gray, but like this is much redder on camera than I think I expect.
Well, mine, it seems like I blame the iPhone every time I do a FaceTime. I'll be like, it's amplifying my gray. But this is not the iPhone I'm on.
It's weird.
And it is white. I look like Santa Claus. That fatter.
Fatter.
We should end
Santa. Just a pissed off Santa Claus.
100 minutes. 100 minutes.
By the way, I noted it. We first said, well, we're about to call this at 1:04. That was 36 minutes ago.
Excellent.
It seems
I had the same thing. I did a quick cast last week, and I said I'm going to wrap this up, and I had another 18 minutes of show.
Well, the good news is we've really filled the last 10 minutes with just like quality content.
Oh, if you hung on this long, it's really worth it. The payoff's been great.
If you've hung on this long, then you need to have some uncomfortable conversations with people close to you.
Right. Get your priorities.
What are you doing in there, honey? Oh, doesn't just listen to 4 dudes.
Just these guys are talking about.
I generally listen to podcasts at like 2 times speed, but I hope you listen to this at like 0.5.
You're gonna need to. There's so many granules.
Yeah, you'll miss stuff.
Get it all.
Go back, rewind, listen to parts.
Wait, what did Michael say?
Mm-hmm. I get that a lot.
Look it up because Michael's going to be back for another podcast in 2 to 3 years.
Mm-hmm. For an extra donation, we'll isolate my audio track.
Yeah, it'll be part of the Calm app.
Well, it's been lovely.
Good work, guys.
All right.
I love you guys. Good night.